Welcome everybody. I am Teresa Zangerli McCartan. I'm a registered dietitian. I work for Premier Medical Group here in the Hudson Valley, and I'm here tonight with Dr. Pasternak from Remedy Naturopathics. I think Dr. Pasternak can tell us a little bit about herself.
All right. Yes. So should I go ahead and just start and share my screen?
Sure.
All right. Okay. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Let me just try to get it into a different view here. All right. So hello, everybody. I'm Tanya Pasternak. I'm a naturopathic doctor and progressing forward here. And I own Remedy Naturopathics, a little clinic and apothecary in New Paltz. So thank you all for joining us. Um, so I'm going to do the first half of the talk tonight, and then Teresa's going to do the second half. I'm going to get into a bit of why are we talking about this and kind of the science behind why nutrition matters. And then Teresa is going to take over and talk about what can we do with this and how can we implement it. So why does it matter? I think a lot of people hear the title clean eating, and we think it's a quick maybe easy fix or like a fad diet to jump on or something that's going to help with metabolism. And metabolism will be one piece that we cover, but really it's so much more than that. It's so much deeper. I'm really hoping with the first part of this lecture, we can lock in how important nutrition is and how vastly it's affecting us on a cellular level. I'm going to be using diet and nutrition interchangeably. So I think about diet as just literally the food we're eating day in and day out, and not so much as a diet, like a standard American diet or whatnot. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it diet, but I don't want there to be any confusion. So it goes without saying that chronic diseases are on the rise in the United States, but worldwide. And this is kind of across the board, right? We're seeing it with diabetes, we're seeing it with cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia, neuropsychiatric conditions. So important to pay attention to. And I hesitated before putting this next line on the slide, like wondering, can I really stand behind the statement? But I do believe that diet influences every health condition. And I tried to rack my brain and say, like, all right, what about like seasonal allergies, or what about Lyme disease, or things that might aren't caused by diet. So diet doesn't necessarily cause all conditions by any means. But I do believe that our diet influences the way our body can handle any condition. Um, with that being said, diet as a cause or a contributing cause for disease is, as a blanket statement, overlooked in the medical system. So I see this day in and day out. There was a statistic that I had in here that for 4 years of conventional medical school, there's 20 or less hours spent on nutrition. So it's a small, small portion of what a lot of doctors are learning. And we can't fault them for maybe not diving deeply into it. It's just not like a huge tool in their toolbox. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be paying more attention to it. Our food system is also becoming harder to navigate, right? So if we think about 50 years ago or 100 or 200 years ago, there were their own problems with trying to get food. So it's not like it was just all easy and, send you on your way. But our problems now are, and our struggles with navigating our food system are different. So we have to be ultra cautious to think about organic or clean eating or GMO free and so forth, right? So it makes our head spin a little bit when we are trying to make the right choices. There's 17,000 different pesticides used in the United States and around 1 billion pounds used annually in the US. So our food system just across the board is problematic to say the least, or has the potential to be. With this too, there's so much information out there, right? Like social media is kind of good for some things, but it makes a lot of other things really overwhelming. So we have social media telling us what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and we have our neighbors and our friends saying what they did and what worked, and what somebody's husband lost weight with intermittent fasting, but they gained weight or whatever it may be. So I feel like with all of this overwhelm and like information overload, people just get left really confused, and then they're not sure what to do, right? Like our heads kind of spinning. And then I see people almost just give up because they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to carry on doing whatever I was doing. So I hope tonight or after this lecture, we can just like bring it back to the basics of what should we be paying attention to, and how can we make this sustainable over time? Um, so before I went to med school, I studied cellular and molecular biology. So that's just kind of how my brain works when I think about things and the physiology. So I'm going to keep it relatively basic, but I want to take like a magic school bus ride through the body of what happens from when we're eating, how that influences the digestive tract and our microbiome, how that can then influence inflammation on a local level and a more systemic level. And then as soon as that food is getting into the bloodstream, how is it affecting our metabolism? All right, so starting with digestion. So when we eat food, the food choices that we're making, whether it's like good, clean eating or more of a processed standard American diet, this food is directly influencing our microbiome. There's a lot of hype about the microbiome, um, and I think there should be because it's so incredibly important. So some of you might be familiar with hearing about it, some of you maybe not so much. But it basically is just all of the microbes that are living in our digestive tract. I've meant to look it up. I don't know how many, millions probably, of different microbes, and mostly bacteria, but there's also viruses, sometimes parasites, fungi, and so forth living in there. So a lot of people have heard of probiotics or maybe use probiotics. And basically, with that, we're just trying to give the body good, healthy bacteria. And it seems like that goes a long ways, and sometimes it does. But really, we can have such a greater influence on our microbiome by what we're eating. So, literally, the choices that we're making with our food day in and day out are contributing to the makeup of the microbiome. It's not the set ecosystem, it's literally changing all the time for the better or the worse. So, it's ever evolving. And we have a lot of influence over that. Good healthy foods, lots of color and variety, good antioxidants and fiber. They are going to feed our good microbiome, which in turn will kind of keep the negative microbes at bay. On the flip side, diets that are more processed and not as nutrient dense are going to feed more of our inflammatory microbiome, and then not so much our good healthy microbiome. So why does this matter? Our microbiome helps us break down our food. When we eat food, our stomach and our intestines break it down a vast majority of it. We have our stomach acid breaking it down, our digestive enzymes breaking it down, but there's this leftover amount of food that our system does not have the capacity to digest. So what we do with that is we send it to the large intestine and we're like, here you go, microbiome, do the rest of the job for us. So it's kind of like the garbage disposal. And sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm going to hopefully keep my voice for this whole thing. Um, if our microbiome is not nice and robust, then we're literally just not breaking down the rest of our food. Therefore, we're not extracting all the nutrients from it. So it affects digestion. Also, 70% of our immune system is located in our gut with our microbiome. So if some, ironically talking about being sick, so if somebody gets sick often, or on the flip side, if somebody struggles with inflammatory conditions and autoimmune conditions, we always want to go back to the root cause of where is this coming from and what is driving that inflammation. And the diet and our digestive well-being always have to be a part of that. Metabolism, I'll get into in a little bit. And then there's also a really strong correlation with nutrition, our digestive function, and mental health. So I feel like there's a stigma around mental health contributing to health conditions. And I see this a lot with IBS. So somebody will say, oh, I have IBS. It's worse when I have anxiety, like I have to run to the bathroom all the time or whatever it may be. But literally, there's a physiological connection between our gut and our brain. They're so highly connected, and there's a lot of research on this. So, yes, there's a connection between our mental well-being and our digestive function. And it's like the chicken or the egg. So, if somebody is prone to anxiety or depression or whatever it may be, that is influencing how our digestive tract functions. But also, if our gut is more inflamed, maybe because of diet, that can also contribute to anxiety and depression and other mental health disorders. So there's a strong give and take with that. So, our diet is also influencing one other thing I want to talk about in the digestive tract, and it's our ability to detox. So, there's a normal process called enterohepatic circulation, which basically means we have to be detoxing so much stuff all day, all the time. We detox normal things within our body. For example, when we make hormone, we make a bunch of hormone, like we make a bunch of estrogen, and then we have to break it down and detox that out. So there's normal things that we're detoxing. There's also food or pesticides or all sorts of environmental chemicals that we're breathing in or ingesting in some form. There's medications, right? Like we're always having to cleanse the system. And I feel like it goes without saying that the better we can detox, the cleaner we're going to be, right? Like it's an assembly line and we want to keep that moving. So there's this normal process where toxins are floating around in our bloodstream. They go to the liver. The liver breaks them down and metabolizes them and then dumps them into the digestive tract. It's like, here you go, we did the work, now get rid of this for us. Depending on what foods we're eating, that those toxins are actually going to get removed from the body or they're not. So, for example, if we have a good fiber-rich diet, that fiber kind of acts like Velcro to all those toxins. It's going to like suck it all up so it can be eliminated from the diet or eliminated from the body. If we don't have a lot of fiber or other nutrients within our diet, there's nothing like that Velcro isn't there. It's kind of just empty space, empty calories type of thing. So when these toxins are getting dumped into the intestines, what's happening is they're just getting sucked back up by the bloodstream and going back around and just kind of hanging out within the body. So enterohepatic circulation is normal. That's like our normal, let's get rid of it. There's this other thing, enterohepatic recirculation, which we do not want to happen, where those toxins are just kind of recycling through the system. I just listed a few things that this can contribute to, but really, like any health, any disease process that we're going through is not going to be made better with this. So, this recirculation of toxins can contribute to a lot of hormone imbalances. As I mentioned before, like this is one way we're breaking down our hormones, such as estrogen. And there's actually an entire part of our microbiome called the estrobolome that is specifically just for estrogen detoxing. So if we're not fueling this microbiome, um, we can have this accumulation of hormones that can feed into things like breast cancer, infertility, endometriosis, early puberty, like anything hormone-wise can be amplified from this. Certainly, digestive disorders themselves can be worse because of this. Colon cancer is associated with a low fiber diet, I would say partially because of this. Um, Other forms of dysbiosis, like a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or yeast overgrowth, anything in the digestive tract itself, and then more inflammatory conditions too. If we think about skin diseases or conditions, eczema, psoriasis, hives, acne, all worse because of this. Arthritis, migraines, kind of you name it, it's not going to be improved if this is happening. So just to kind of zoom out again to see what did we just talk about. So from the foods we're eating, it's going into the digestive tract. It's directly influencing the microbiome. It's also influencing our body's ability to detox. And then we can talk about how is it influencing inflammation. So it is said that the intestines or our digestive tract is technically outside of our body. Like it's obviously within us, but it's a big long tube going through our body. So in a sense, it's its own world. It's kind of outside of our body. Um, and what needs to happen is we need a good protective barrier and like a good army, a good walls to say we're going to let this stuff into the rest of the system, or like, no, this is not safe. Let it keep going through the tube and get out of our body. So if we look at the intestines and we kind of take a cross section, if you bear with me for a second with this, this is the inside of the tube, right? If we're eating food, it's going down the lumen, the inside. And then this is our good, healthy barrier, our protective wall to say like, okay, we want to like keep these things passing through, or we want to let this stuff absorb throughout the system. So if we zoom in a little bit more and take a cross section of that, it brings us down here. So a normal gut has no leaky gut, right? It's just optimally functioning. And part of what is happening is the entire intestines are lined by cell, 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 cell. And these cells should be hugging very, very tightly. They're hugging by these things called tight junctions, which are like suctioning them up next to each other. And this is allowing the body to regulate, like, what do we want to let in? Is this a good bacteria? Is this a virus? Is it a weird, funky infection? Is it bad pesticides from our food? Like, we're picking and we're choosing. Food is fully breaking down into its tiniest little pieces. And then our body's like, okay, cool. We see that as an amino acid. We see that as a piece of sugar, whatever. We're going to like soak it up. And so, as we let this into our bloodstream, so now we went from technically the outside world of in the gut to the inside world of our body, which is inside of our bloodstream. Normally, our immune system, it's used to seeing all these things because our body did the filtering for it. So it's like, yep, I know what this is. Yep, I know what this is. We're all good. What can happen if that digestive system gets inflamed, partially from diet, there's other things that can do that too, medications, infections. So it's not all that, but it is largely driven by it. But when the gut gets inflamed, we get into this more leaky gut presentation or intestinal permeability. So what's happening is things are swollen, those tight junctions kind of broke apart a little bit and they're loose. And then we don't have the discretion to pick and choose what we're letting through. So this can be make people prone to infection because we can allow different viruses and bacteria in. And then also what can happen is instead of our food needing to be in its tiniest little pieces for the body to want it in that way, larger food molecules that are not fully broken down yet are just kind of seeping through and passing into the bloodstream. So that food molecule, say somebody ate pineapple, and if they had their good healthy gut, that pineapple breaks down into its tiny little pieces, gets absorbed, the body's like, yep, we got this. But in this leaky gut presentation, big molecules of that pineapple are then seeping through. And our immune system, when it gets into the bloodstream, is like, what the heck is this? This is not a normal thing that we're used to seeing. Then the immune system can start attacking it. So this is one situation where I see people develop a lot of food allergies or a lot of food intolerances. Like it might not be the specific food that's actually the issue. It just might be how the gut is responding to that. And if we can repair this and get somebody back over on this side, we can often minimize the reaction somebody's having. These are just some objective markers that I test for my patients sometimes when we think there's a dietary component to their inflammation or maybe a digestive issue going on. It helps to have objective numbers and markers that we can track over time to check our efficacy of our treatment. Like, are we on the right track if somebody's making dietary changes, or if we're going after gut healing, like how do we know we're making a good change? So CRP or ESR, these are just acute inflammatory markers that can give us a little indication. Sometimes we check antibody levels. So specifically the thyroid antibodies can be influenced by certain food choices that we make. We can check antibody levels before somebody makes a big dietary shift and then check them after and see if it panned out to be helpful for them. Um, there's different ways to actually look for leaky gut or intestinal permeability. There's a stool test, which I'll show you in a second, and then there's actually a urine test that can be done for this too. We can test the microbiome through stool testing, and I think Teresa is familiar with some of these tests as well. And then sometimes I do food allergy or food intolerance testing, and I'll show a quick picture of that. Granted, there's lots of other ways, and sometimes better ways to see what somebody's reacting to. So this is a little screenshot of a stool test that I often run with patients. And down below, there's this marker called zonulin. Zonulin is a good marker to test for leaky gut. So the higher the number, the more leaky the system is. And we really want to work if we see a high number to help bring this down. This is an example of a food intolerance test. So there's tests out there that go through all sorts of different foods, and it'll show is somebody barely reactive at all, or are they having really strong reactions? So it can be used for as a guide. There's different like caveats and ins and outs to the logistics of this type of test, but they can be helpful. They have their place. Um, and when I do these tests and I see people just across the board light up in the red, they're flagging for, 20 different food intolerances. At that point, I know that it's not actually each one of those foods that is the issue. It's more so that their immune system is just overreactive because of that intestinal permeability. So I have done these tests on people before where we're looking at the before and after report, and we can see these reactions go significantly down, which is nice. Okay. How am I on time? Okay. So our diet influences our gut and our microbiome and our ability to detox. That has the potential to lead into inflammation. And then what happens when we finally do allow that food into the bloodstream? How does it affect our metabolism? Teresa's going to touch on this a little bit more with like food pairing and whatnot, but I do want to just kind of skim over this. So this is a graph of our blood sugar, and I know nobody wants to see a graph at whatever time it is on a Monday, but we'll keep it simple. So this dotted line is our stability with our blood sugar. Like our body's happy when it's like relatively stable. Our blood sugar can go like slightly up and slightly down, or it can spike up and it can crash. We are going to feel the best. I call it, it's like rolling hills. We want these rolling hills. We don't want too much deviation one way or another. We want the rolling hills. We don't want these peaks and these valleys. We can achieve one or the other depending on what we eat. I pick on oatmeal, not because it's bad. I eat oatmeal, but it's just easy to like use as an example. So say, for example, you just have a bowl of oatmeal, which basically is a whole bunch of carbohydrate. Carbohydrates easily get chopped up into little bits of sugar. So our body is like, we're going to chop that up really quickly. We're going to absorb it. Our blood sugar is going to massively spike, and then we're going to create insulin to get that down because the system doesn't want it this high. And we actually overshoot it, right? We pump out so much insulin because we're like, oh my goodness, our sugar's so high. Then we're going to overshoot it and we're going to go really far down below like this normal happy zone, and then rinse and repeat type of thing. With the oatmeal, say you add other things to it. You add peanut butter or almond butter or nuts and seeds or some sort of protein. So you could take the same food and just add to it to make it a more balanced meal. Then our body has to do more work to break down all of that. And so instead of just being like chop, 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 I broke down this carb into all this little sugar, like easy peasy in a sense, not good for us, but kind of easy. Now it's like, okay, now I'm breaking down the oatmeal and I'm breaking down the fat and I'm breaking down the protein. And it makes it take a bit longer to do all of that, which is beneficial for us. Then we're not getting these huge spikes and we're not getting these massive crashes. It helps our energy maintain for a lot longer. It helps keep us full for longer so it can reduce overeating and cravings. Whereas in this situation, we're going to be predisposed to insulin resistance, weight gain, inflammation. And then when we crash, you're like hangry and you just want another cup of coffee or like really spacey after lunch. Right? So then you grab like a thing of candy or whatever, and it's just like up and down again. So it's just not stable throughout the day. The last little piece of that is I really, this is just to say that insulin can be a super important test. So insulin levels can be off long before we see blood sugar levels being off. So it's an early indicator if it's abnormal of prediabetes. We can actually pick up on those metabolic shifts years before we could pick up on prediabetes. So I test the regular fasting blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C regularly, but I do think testing insulin specifically can be really helpful as well. So that's a little journey from when we eat to how it affects us, and there's so many other ways too. This is just trying to really lock in that like literally our diet is affecting everything about us all day long, all day long. So really important to be mindful of it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pasternak. That was great.
You're
Um,
welcome.
a lot of good information. So I'm sure everybody here loved it too. And I saw a couple of questions pop up real quick, and one of them was, is this being recorded? This is being recorded. It will be sent to anybody who signed up for the webinar after, as well as some handouts and recipes, slides, and stuff like that. So you'll get all of that, but after the recording is finished. So with that, I'll get on to my presentation because it goes hand in hand with what Dr. Pasternak already talked about. Okay, so I love that Dr. Pasternak just spoke about everything, how important diet is in relationship to how the body works on a daily basis, right? And it's so, so important. And we're going to talk about specifically clean eating tonight. Now, to me, clean eating throughout my practice, I've had patients come in, I want to say January 1st, and go, I'm going to do clean eating for a month. That's not what clean eating is meant for. Clean eating is actually it's a lifestyle. It's what we should be doing on a daily basis and how we should be pairing our meals throughout the day and snacks. So today we're gonna define clean eating. We're gonna understand the five anchors of clean eating. We're going to talk about something called the clean plate formula. Um, and we're going to identify foods that fit the clean eating pattern and also understand how to incorporate it into our daily life. My whole objective always is that this needs to be sustainable for you. So whatever we're teaching you here, we want you to be able to implement it into your daily life. And we never want to give you anything that is so unrealistic that you feel like you can't follow it. So we're going to go over all the basics today. So, what is clean eating? At its core, clean eating means choosing foods that are closer to their natural state, prepared simply and eaten with intention. It prioritizes quality over calories and consistency over extremes. So, you're going to hear me talk about this throughout the presentation today, that I'm not looking at clean eating as something that is so rigid that we can't deviate from it. In my mind, when we're eating, our eating habits need to be fluid because life happens, right? You know, we have to go here with our kids, or a meeting comes up at work, or we have to travel, or social events, or family events. So, clean eating needs to be something that can move within our lives. And we have to have that ability to enable ourselves to do that and not diminish ourselves for not being strict all the time. So, we're going to talk about that a little bit too as we go on. And we're going to talk about how clean eating too is meant to be intentful. So we're supposed to look at what we're eating and eat it intentfully, not mindlessly. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard that word mindlessly. If any of you have worked with me, I use it all the time in working with patients. So we don't want to mindlessly eat. We don't want to sit in front of a TV and eat, right? We don't want to eat just out of habit. We want to eat with intention. So, clean eating emphasizes whole foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, good proteins, all good proteins. Okay. I don't eliminate proteins. Okay. So, I don't eliminate beef. I don't eliminate chicken. I don't eliminate all proteins, healthy fats, herbs, and spices. Now, you see here, we did say whole grains, and clean eating is not meant to eliminate food groups either. I don't eliminate whole food groups in this. We want to welcome all food groups as The whole food groups are whole food, so we want them in our diet on a daily basis. We want to encourage protein at every meal. And this is actually speaking to what Dr. Pasternak just spoke about, right? That we need the protein, not just a carbohydrate filled meal. We need both of them to have good blood sugar control throughout the day. And we're going to talk about how that not only works with blood sugar, but it also works with hormones, it works with everything throughout our body and why we need that protein at every meal. Um, we're Clean eating favors short, recognizable ingredient list over ultra processed lists. Supports stable blood sugar by pairing carbohydrates with protein and healthy fat. See, it's going to come up all the time. And is gentle and sustainable, not restrictive, not punishing, and not all or nothing. Remember, it needs to be fluid. So first, we're going to talk about our 5 anchors, okay? So this little graphic shows us that the first anchor is we want real food first. The second is protein at every meal. The third is minimal ingredients. The fourth is stable blood sugars. And the 5 is gentle and not restrictive. So choosing real food first. Choose foods that are close to their natural form as possible. Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, quality proteins, healthy fats, herbs. The less processed, the better. Okay. So I don't want to pick up an ingredient. I don't want to pick up a packaged item and look at it. It's 2 paragraphs long, and I can't pronounce half the words or more on there. We don't want to do that. I want to be able to identify the words on there. I want to see maybe I'm picking up a natural hamburger from the store. And in that natural hamburger, it says, ground chicken. Then maybe it says thyme. Maybe there's some spinach in it. Maybe there's basil in it. I want to be able to identify the words and know that they're in my kitchen. If I really wanted to, I could make the burger, but they're in my kitchen. So I know what's in that food. That's what we're looking to do. So protein at every meal, including protein at meals and snacks, supports fullness, stable energy, muscle health, and blood sugar balance. Protein helps prevent energy crashes and cravings and anchors meals so they last, right? So why are we doing this? Why am I harping on protein? Why did Dr. Pasternak say, it's important to have protein, right? Well, protein also not only is to help us to prevent the crashes from happening, right? But it also helps us to stay full throughout the day. So without that protein, if we just have a carb-laden meal, so say it's at lunchtime and we're just having pasta, right? We're going to be hungry in a couple hours and we're going to potentially get hangry in a couple hours. I'm sure all of us have heard that terminology before, hangry, right? And it's because our body is processing it so quickly. But when we have a balanced meal that has our protein in with it, it's going to help us stay full and satisfied longer. Okay, so why stress protein? It stabilizes the blood sugar, it increases fullness. It supports muscle and metabolism, right? So, any of you who are out there doing strength training, doing cardio, trying to lose weight or gain muscle or what have you, protein is so important, especially after workouts, okay? And especially after strength training workouts. We need that protein in our diet. It improves energy and focus throughout the day. So hopefully, if we have enough protein throughout the day, at 3 p.m., we don't get that crash where we're either looking for that candy bar in our desk or that next cup of coffee. It helps us to stay focused throughout the day. Protein reduces cravings later in the day. So then again, that candy bar on the desk, we can push aside and say we don't want it. And also, hopefully, later at night, when we're all sitting down and maybe watching a show, we're not looking to get that bag of chips. We're not looking to get that chocolate. We're not looking to get that ice cream because we fulfilled all of what our body needs throughout the day. Um, and it also prevents I had to put it in there, the hangry swings that we can see. What does protein look like at a meal? So protein can be eggs at breakfast, Greek yogurt with fruit, chicken, fish, tofu, lentils, beans at meals, nuts, seeds, or dairy as supportive add-ons. All of these are great protein sources, right? And why again? So protein's going to keep us satisfied, right? It's going to make sure that we're feeling full and satisfied all day long. So that's why protein is important in the diet. The next anchor we're going to look at is we want minimal ingredients, right? So clean eating, it favors short, recognizable ingredients. If a food comes in a package, it should contain mostly ingredients you can recognize and could not find in a kitchen or lab. So the rule of thumb is always like 5 to 7 ingredients, especially the first 3 to 5 we can recognize. Okay, so I'm able to pronounce them. And most likely, I'm able to find them in my kitchen cabinet somewhere, right? So if I had them available, I could produce them. If I was to look at, I wanted to use this example of like, say, a granola, because I have so many patients that come in and they say, I add granola to my yogurt. Granola could be great to add to the yogurt. But if I had two granolas, right, and one that has, say, oats, brown rice syrup, sugar, soybean oil, natural flavors and preservatives, that would be granola A. Granola B had oats, nuts, seeds, olive oil, honey, and cinnamon. I want to choose granola B because that has all ingredients that I can grab out from my pantry, right? And I can pronounce them all and I know what they are. Granola A has things like natural flavors, preservatives. Well, what natural flavors? What preservatives? Just doesn't they don't say. It's just on there. So again, as naturally as we can, that's what we're looking for when we're talking about minimal ingredients within the clean eating parameters, okay? We want, again, stable blood sugar. Stable blood sugar is very important. Meals are built by pairing carbohydrates with protein and healthy fats. Now, I want to say, like in making this slide, I feel like I made a mistake because I didn't put fiber in there anywhere, and I should have, right? So fiber should be in here too. So when we're looking at pairing a meal, it should be we have, where's our protein? I say this all the time in practice. When we go through meal plans and we go through what we're eating in a day, my first question at every meal or every snack is going, where's your protein? Where's your protein? What kind of protein are we having? Are we having just, say, a piece of fruit, or are we pairing that with maybe a little bit of walnuts or peanuts or maybe a piece of cheese? Are we pairing it with things that can accompany it to prevent that blood sugar spike that Dr. Pasternak did talk about? Okay. This balance supports mood, focus, hormones, metabolic health while reducing blood sugar spikes and crashes and reactive hunger. Now, here I wanted to touch on hormones just for a second because, one of the things I see a lot, especially in women, is they're coming to me and, sometimes they're, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopausal, and sometimes it's just we have really bad swings when around our menstrual cycle. And sometimes we have cravings and we're going for those sugary items around that time, and we think it's okay because it's around that time. One of the things I do preach is that we don't do that. We really do want to make sure our meals are protein focused, that there's fiber, healthy fats in them, because that will help with the cravings as we go through our cycle in the month. Now, this is the gentle, not restrictive part of clean eating, because remember, life is life and we have to be fluid, right? We have to be able to move around a little bit. And if things were so restrictive, I always find that we're less apt to follow them the more restrictive it is, right? It's not going to be sustainable. So, clean eating is supportive, not rigid, punishing, or all or nothing. It leaves room for flexibility, enjoyment, and real life, recognizing that consistency matters more than perfection. So I'm always the person to preach that if 90% of the time, 95, 80% of the time we're doing the right thing, those other times it's okay. It's okay to we have a special occasion to go out and have something. And, maybe it's just tonight's a night that it's a crazy night and I got to go grab something. I got to, instead of making that nice meal. And that's going to happen and that's okay. And we shouldn't feel like we need to punish ourselves for that, for not following the clean eating regimen. It should be that, yes, that happens, but tomorrow's tomorrow and it'll be fine. And I'm just going to go right back on it tomorrow and that's okay. Okay. So we don't want to be punishing to ourselves. So it avoids the words always or never. I hate that. We're always going to eat this, or I'm never going to have a cookie ever again. I have patients that come into my office and tell me that, and I go, well, that's not realistic at all. Because I couldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. Never have a cookie, never have this again. We avoid those words. We don't use that. There are no forbidden foods. There are no moral labels of good versus bad. We don't do that. And one meal does not define our health. And we always have to remember that it's not just about the one meal, it's about what we're doing in the broad spectrum of things, right? So if we're doing it 80, 85, 90, 95% of the time, maybe now we're only able to do it 60% of the time, but maybe we're going to work towards doing it a little bit different as we go each and every week, and that's okay. Why gentle eating matters? Because rigid rules increase stress, guilt, and rebound eating. Now, why I say this too, why this matters is that also if we're stressed, what happens when we're stressed? Our cortisol levels increase, right? So when our cortisol levels increase, that's not good for our metabolic health, right? So if we're thinking about it this way, by stressing out if we're not clean eating or not, and then uh, having the effect of the high cortisol levels, we shouldn't stress about it. We should know that we can be flexible as human beings, okay? We want to be able to adapt to our busy day, travel, social events, illness, stress, changing needs, right? We want to be able to do that. We always want to ask, what's the best choice I have available right now? Not what's perfect. We don't want to strive. It's not perfection. Okay. So now that we went through all the five anchors, now we're going to go to, well, so then what do I eat? What do I avoid? What can I do here, right? So ultra processed snacks. Cheetos do not count as cheese. I'm sorry, guys. Nope, nope, nope. Cheetos don't, not neither do Cheez-Its. Um, our potato chips, nope, they're not potatoes. We still need to eat the potatoes. We want to avoid all those ultra highly processed items, rice-a-roni, pasta sides, all of that kind of stuff. We should really look to have more of the natural food, right? So instead of like a rice-a-roni, I would recommend having maybe a brown rice or a wild rice or a quinoa or a barley or a farro with dinner, and maybe put chicken stock in it to get that same flavor, right? When you're cooking it. Um, we want to avoid added sugars hiding in like sometimes healthy food. So I love the thing of I think it's Kind. I'm almost positive it's like the Kind bars. And I went through it one time with a group of patients, and I think there was 5 to 6 different sources of sugar hidden within that bar. So some of the bars can be just as bad as having a candy bar, right? It still has the fiber from the nuts and things like that, but there's a lot of hidden sources of sugar, so that should be something we can have sometimes, right? We want to avoid refined oils and refined flours. We want whole grain whenever possible. And we want to avoid eating on autopilot. So mindlessly eating, we want to try to avoid. So now that what I told you, everything that you can't have, now we got to focus on the stuff that we can eat, right? So starchy or non-starchy or starchy vegetables. So if you're having peas, if you're having zucchini, if you're having acorn squash, butternut squash, if you're having asparagus, all of those are great vegetables to have. I don't put an X on any vegetable, okay? This talks about doing low glycemic fruits. So if you're doing fruits, right, the lower the sugar content in some of them is like the berries, right? They have the lower sugar. But I always tell everybody, like, if the worst thing we're doing is picking up a banana today, we're not doing that bad. If the worst thing we're doing is picking up a piece of an orange or an apple, that's fine. Like, we should be eating those things. Those things should be in our diet. We want good quality protein, eggs, fish, chicken, beef, Greek yogurt, tofu, fish. Those are all great things to have. We want to have whole carbs, oats, quinoa, farro, sweet potatoes, wild rice, brown rice. All of those need to be in it. Healthy fats like olive oils, nuts, seeds, avocado. Those are all great things to put in our diet. What I do want to stress what clean eating is not. So clean eating is not a detox regimen. Okay, like I said, I do have a lot of people that come in and say they want to do clean eating for 1 month. This is supposed to be a lifestyle. It's supposed to be how we're eating. Um, it's not perfection. It's not cutting entire food groups out because not once did you hear me mention that we were going to take out all of the carbs in the diet. We didn't say that. We're going to keep all the food groups in. It's about consistency, nourishment, and how the food makes you feel. Okay. This is how our plate should be looking. Okay. And this is kind of really goes along the idea of like the My Plate guidelines, right? So it's like it's 50% of our plate should be from veggies. Okay. Usually that equates to a minimum of 2 cups. Then we have a quarter of the plate as protein and a quarter of the plate as smart carbs. Okay. And smart carbs, again, are going to be the more whole grain carbs, not the refined ones. So now that we went through all that, the one thing that was missing on this screen right here, there's no dairy. And I haven't really talked about dairy. So when we're talking about clean eating, we tend to sometimes go over that and not talk about that part of it. If where does dairy fit in? Can I have dairy? And the answer is yes, we can have dairy. Dairy can be part of clean eating when it is minimally processed. I'm sorry, everybody. The Kraft American cheese does not fit in this plan. That is a highly processed cheese product, and the American cheeses are, but you can have other sources of cheese, and we'll get to that. I also want to put in here is you can have dairy in this regimen too, as long as you tolerate it. So there's many people out there that do not tolerate dairy. If you do not tolerate dairy, that shouldn't be in this regimen for you. Um, and we want to use it as a protein or fat source. It's not a filler, so we don't want to sit and just over fat and dairy our meals, right? So we don't want to sit there and have a salad that has 4 to 5 sources of fats in it, and cheese being one of them. Like we do, if it has cheese and it has olive oil and avocado and say they put bacon in it and then say they put nuts in it, like that's 5 sources right there. So we don't want to sit there and overfat our meals. We want to be careful to make sure that it's well balanced because that sometimes tends to be the fat is the main component in that meal. We want to make sure that we have the protein side of things too within that meal. So maybe adding some tuna or some chicken or something like that to it. Examples are plain Greek yogurt, cottage cheese with simple ingredients, kefir, aged cheeses like cheddar, Parmesan, Swiss, organic or grass-fed milk if you tolerate it. Um, the ones that we want to avoid are like the sweetened yogurts. Those are going to be processed. Processed cheese slices, cheese flavored snacks. Here comes the Cheetos again. And flavored creamers. Those we do want to avoid. Okay. We're going to go over quick of how to choose the dairy. I think we're doing okay on time, so we can have a quick Q&A at the end. We want to make sure, listen, organic or grass-fed when possible. I say when possible that I know the price of food has gone up, and if it's choosing over, I can have this maybe cheddar that's not organic or grass-fed, having a little bit more money to buy other things, other fruits and vegetables that may not be organic. Like, please buy more fruits and vegetables. I want you to do that. Don't get stuck in the hole that we only can do that because we want to be able to make sure we're having mostly whole foods. I don't want you to have to choose between those two things. We want short ingredients list and fermented over ultra processed. We want to watch our portions. Okay. So one of the things I always tell people, and I want to say most patients laugh at me when I tell them this, is like an ounce of cheese is a serving. It's like the size of 2 dice put together. It's not a lot, but that's the serving of cheese, okay, when we're sitting down to have a piece. So it's not half the brick of cheese. It's a portion because it's supposed to be an accompaniment to whatever you're having. It's not supposed to be the mainstay. Okay, and pair it with vegetables, whole foods, and protein forward meals. And avoid using dairy as the only protein or fat source. Okay, so in summary, clean eating is about nourishing your body with intention, balance, and kindness most of the time, because sometimes it's not always going to work out that way. All right, and that's our so far. Oh, webinar for today. Oh, hold on. Okay. And anybody have any questions? We're gonna go to the Q&A and see. I think we have like 9 questions so far, Dr. Pasternak, that we can answer. So let's see. So how can I access? We already went over how can you access the PowerPoint. The next question is, which doctor shall I reach out to regarding food allergy testing? Dr. Pasternak, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so it depends. One thing I know we're like a little pressed on time to get into everything, but it's really important to recognize that food allergies are different than food intolerances. That can be confusing. So a food allergy is what we would think about with like a normal peanut allergy, anaphylactic or potentially anaphylactic type of reaction typically some sort of like oral or throat involvement. That's its own thing. Food intolerances is what a lot of people are thinking about, like what, and maybe this is the case for you or not, but that's more so like what foods don't agree with me. Like, should I eat dairy? Should I eat eggs? Is it the yolk? Is it the whites? So they're different. An allergist, I mean, a primary care naturopathic doctors, we can do a regular Quest panel for certain food allergies. Really, though, an allergist would be the best for like skin prick testing and more advanced testing. For a food intolerance, an allergist is not going to do that. It's not necessarily as recognized in the medical system or as like conventionally tested. So, naturopathic doctors, it's something we do. Different ways that it could one could go about figuring it out, elimination diets, testing, and so forth. So, kind of depends, which is the answer for a lot of things.
Another question is an insulin test typically included in our annual blood work?
No, it's not. But it can be done at a regular lab, like a Quest or
Mhm.
whatnot.
Are there good protein powders such as Easy Fix to get that protein in? So there are some good protein powders out there. Um, it depends upon what you're really looking for too. Like if you're looking for a vegan-based one, non-vegan based one, there are a ton of different ones out there. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. I feel like that's so broad, but it really is like there's just so many now out there that you could get.
Yeah.
Food pairings and food lists would be beneficial. So you're going to be getting some stuff too that's all handout. So you'll get some of that stuff in your emails, whoever signed up for the webinar. Okay, let's get those. What's the best yogurt? Most say Greek, no fat, low fat, or full fat. I'm always get a full fat Greek yogurt. That's me. Dr. Pastak, what about you?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm always like, just get the full fat one. I love like the fat in it's good for you. You need the
Yeah,
fat.
for sure. And then unsweetened too. So if
Yes.
somebody really needs something, like you could add some mashed up berries in it or like a teeny little bit of honey or maple syrup or something like that. Like,
Yep.
yes, it's still going to break down into sugar, but you can control it. You can have it be 3 grams and not 30 grams. So,
Mhm. One of the things I have sometimes patients do is you make them ahead of time, like meal prep. You put it in like little mason jars or whatever cups you want, and then you put the berries on there, and the berries break down a little bit in the yogurt, so it's almost like it's sweetened, but it's you're doing it yourself with the natural fruit, which is nice. Um, would a referral from a GP be needed to get an appointment with you, Dr. Pasternak?
no. My website is remedynaturopathics.com, and there's a lot of logistical information on there. And you can contact me directly on my website with any questions.
Okay, and then I think if there's an insurance question after that, but once you contact Dr. Pasternak, I'm sure she could answer that for you too.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Um, what about nut milks? So nut milks, again, like you can use nut milks. Now, nut milks, there's a lot of sweetened nut milks though.
Mm.
So we want to stay away from those. But if you can't tolerate dairy, then and you're using a using a milk instead of the non-dairy milk, that is fine. But again, you want one with the minimal amount of ingredients on it still. There are some out there that's the list is still a paragraph or more long, and I know I can't pronounce half the names on them. How about you, Dr. Pasternak?
Yeah, there's one specifically, carrageenan, which I could be saying wrong. It's in a lot of nut milks, and that specifically is tied to that leaky gut presentation.
Yep. Okay. Answered that one. Olive oils have to be extra virgin olive oil. I always say, yeah, olive oils is you want extra virgin olive oil. I always say in a glass bottle too is the best, if you can, not in the plastic bottles when you're using them. Other oils too, like I know I use avocado oil. You as well, Dr. Pasternak?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then how you're using it is important too. So olive oil, like the more we're cooking something, if you're getting it to the point of it smoking, like it's beyond its
I
health
heat.
benefits at that point too. So that all feeds into it as well.
Yeah. Typically like olive oil and avocado oil is more towards the higher heat when you're cooking on the stove and things like that. Sauteing, you can use more of the avocado oil. Salads always great for olive oil. I cannot eat dairy. Any suggestion on a non-dairy cheese? Most I see have so many additives. Oh, and you're right. Most of them do. There's one with the oh my God, the name is actually I'll if I remember it, I'll put it in Ju it's like a cashew one. I'll put it, I'll actually have our DR marketing person put it in with the email out to everybody so you have it. But there is one that is a little bit better than all of the other ones that are out there that literally have at least a paragraph or more on them.
Mm. Nutritional yeast is good too. It's not
Mhm.
a cheese alternative per se, but it has like a cheesy flavor. So my daughter couldn't eat dairy for a few years of her life, and she is now obsessed with nutritional yeast. So it's really good on like salads or kale chips or tofu or whatever.
This one is so do you feel a vegan diet is healthier than the standard American diet? So I'm gonna say that if we're just thinking the standard American diet and what that is, because that's not what we're talking about tonight. Clean eating is not their standard American diet and what we think, then honestly every diet is healthier than the standard American diet. But if we're saying that to be a vegan is healthier, I personally don't think that and professionally don't think that. I think that, if you're being a vegan for a reason, that's fine. And you can definitely still get your protein sources in, but not one's over the other.
Yeah, that's a really hard apples to apples, or it
Hmm.
can't be really, because you could be a vegan and eat a ton of great, amazing foods, or you could be a vegan and eat a bunch of loaves of bread. So,
Yes, exactly.
that's you could be a standard American vegan, standard
Hmm.
American diet vegan. So that's
Exactly. It's very generalized. It
yeah.
would have to be more, yeah, a little more specific. Can you get all your protein from plants and dairy? Yeah, you could. It's hard, but you
Yeah.
can. I've done it before with patients. It's literally going through everything and prioritizing the protein at the meals, but it is possible. It is possible. Um, and then I think what a couple more minutes. Um, we answered the protein shake one. Do you deal with patients with cancer, Dr. Pasternak?
Patients who have cancer, is that what you
Mhm.
said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think naturopathic medicine is great supportive care for anything. A little biased maybe, but I do believe that. And I don't act, I wouldn't take the place of an oncologist or a regular care team, but naturopathic medicine is great in conjunction with the team and as like another member on it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm totally in agreement. I work with cancer patients as well. Totally in agreement in conjunctive care. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Fermented food for gut health. I'm gonna give two thumbs up. Like great for
Mhm.
gut health. But
Yeah.
again, like if you're getting like a kefir that's sweetened, like like you just gotta watch with what you're doing. Because some of them do have other things added to it. So always be a label reader. Be that person that maybe you seem annoyed in the grocery store because you're in front of it reading that label, but be that person that's doing that.
Yeah.
Can even good complex carbs play havoc on blood sugar? Should carbs be kept to a daily amount? I'll let you do it, then I'll probably add my 2 cents in too.
There's, I'm usually not a total amount person. There's like a few guidelines that I give people as like bumpers to navigate, but that's not how I tend to think about things. So it's another one where it depends. It depends on, do you have diabetes? Do you have type 1 diabetes? Do you have type 2 diabetes? Like certain situations, we are going to need a tighter control to maintain things. Certain times we're not going to need to, and it's going to be totally fine. And a lot of it comes down to the whole makeup of the meal, like Teresa got into too. Like, what are you having that with? If it's just a whole bunch of sweet potato on its own, even though that's a good healthy food, like you need something to balance it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's always like that rule of thumb where too much of a good thing is still too much,
Mm.
like you still don't want to do that. So it's still got to be balanced. Let's see how we are on time. We got like one more minute. Um, Oh, somebody on the bottom, Rebel cheese and Tree Line are cashew-based cheeses with real ingredients. Thank you. I appreciate that. It was an anonymous attending, so I appreciate that. And there's another one too. I just can't remember it, but I'll put it up. I'll send it out to everybody. Um, So one of them was tips for veggies for someone on Coumadin and cannot have too much vitamin K. That's all based on consistency with Coumadin and what your INR is. So even though they always say I know the doctors give you the handout, right? That I'm sure you've seen it, Dr. Pasternak, the limits, right? It's more of consistency and what you're doing on a daily basis with your vitamin K levels in regards to your green leafies with vitamin
Agreed.
K. All right, so I think that's all the time we have for questions. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you all for attending, and you will be getting, like I said, you'll be getting some handouts. You'll get the recording, you'll get everything. So I appreciate everybody who attended, and thank you so much, Dr. Pasternak, for doing this. Hopefully, this
Yeah,
is the first of many we could do together. This
for
was fun.
sure. Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
have
Thanks,
a great night,
everybody.
everybody. Thanks. Bye.